Hello everyone and welcome to our webcast today, Transforms and Modifiers in 3ds Max. Our speaker is Renu Matu, the author of our 3ds Max books, and I will pass things over to her.
Thanks, Corinne. Welcome everyone and thank you for joining us for today's webcast session. Now in this session today I'll be talking to you about the various modifiers and transform tools that are available with 3ds Max software. Now, for those of you who have not attended any of my previous webcast sessions, I'll introduce myself first. And for those of you who have already attended my sessions, please bear with me. My name is Renu Matu, and I'm an instructional designer with ASCENT. My main work here is to write and update the courseware material, including the training guides for various Autodesk software products, such as AutoCAD and other AutoCAD verticals, which include AutoCAD Electrical, AutoCAD Mechanical, Plan Design, and so on. And then I also create courseware material on the Autodesk visualization software products that includes Autodesk 3ds Max, Autodesk Showcase, and VRED Professional. Now, as always, I'll be explaining the topic with the help of the PowerPoint presentation that you can see on the screen, and then I will also demonstrate them, all those modifiers and transforms in the 3ds Max 2017 software. So let's get started. Today's topic is about using various modifiers and transforms in 3ds Max. I'm taking the information from our 3ds Max Fundamentals course. I'll be presenting some parts of Chapter 4 and some parts of Chapter 5 of the 3ds Max 2017 Fundamentals Training Guide. The training guide is developed by ASCENT, which is an Autodesk authorized publisher. As I mentioned earlier, I'll be sharing with you information about modifiers and transforms. Now in 3ds Max software, there is a significant distinction between these two types of tools. Those of you who are familiar with some other CAD programs, you must be aware that many CAD programs consider move, rotate, and scale as modify options. But in 3ds Max, that's not the case. They are considered as transforms, and modifiers are a different set of tools. In today's presentation, I'll be talking about this distinction and how to use both the transforms as well as the modifiers together to create and modify objects in a scene. So first of all, let me talk about modifiers now. Modifiers, what do they do actually? They add geometric and property alterations to objects. They change the geometry and hence change the physical appearance of objects. Most modifiers enable you to modify and edit the internal structure of an object. The modifiers are provided in the modifier list. Here you can see it on the screen. This is the modifier list. And you have to be in the modified panel to access them. So this is a modified panel here. They are divided in basic sections such as the world space modifiers, object space modifiers, and so on, and are listed alphabetically in those sections. You can apply them to either a complete object or just a portion of the object. Now, if you want to apply it to just a portion of an object, you have to use the sub-object level selection in the modifier stack. They are displayed as individual entries, and you can turn them off or on through the modifier stack, which means that all those modifiers that you apply, they will be listed in the modifier stack, and then you can go back and forth in there in the modifier stack and switch them on, off, or make any alterations at any point. There is a huge list of modifiers that is provided with the 3ds Max software, and they can be used in a variety of ways. I'll go over a few of the modifiers in today's session, as time does not permit me to go over each and every one of them. So the first one that I'll be talking about is the Extrude Modifier. Now, what this modifier does is that it enables you to add depth to a 2D shape to create geometry. You can use the various parameters to edit the geometry created. Additionally, you can have 2D shapes attached to form complex splines. Now, as you can see here, first of all, these are the parameters that you can modify to create all those 3D geometry and modify them while creating them as well. And then we have those complex splines. Sometimes we have the 2D shapes in the form of complex splines, which are combined as 2D objects, and these are called as nested splines right here on the screen. When extruding a nested spline, which is when we extrude it here, you can see it here, we have extruded it, the enclosed areas, they form solid masses. This is extremely useful for modeling wall systems and similar kind of geometry in 3ds Max software. Now, the second modifier that I'll be explaining is the lathe modifier. It enables you to create a 3D object by revolving a profile, which is a 2D shape around an axis. Now, as you can see in the leftmost picture here, this is a 2D shape that was created using the line command. Then I had added a little bit of Bezier here to give it a curvy look. Otherwise, it was created by using a line command simply, and it's a closed 2D shape. Then the lathe tool was applied to the profile. So I have applied a lathe tool to this profile. The profile revolves around a center point, but in the middle picture here, you can see that the alignment is off. Although it's still going around and it is revolving it around the center point, but this center point is overlapping. So the alignment is off. So easily in the parameters, what you can do is you can correct this by simply pressing the min alignment option, and by simply pressing one option in the parameters of the lathe modify panel, you can get this, get a candle stand, and the alignment, the center of alignment, center point, will already be fixed for you. Now the next modifier is the sweep modifier. So the sweep modifier is a simple and effective option to create 3D geometry based on a 2D section that follows a series of splines. So these series of spline segment paths, so for example, there is one spline segment path here, and then there is another one that's created here. So you can have series of those segment paths, and a 2D section will follow and create a geometry along that spline, along the spline segment paths. This modifier can create 3D pipe networks, curbing, moldings, and I have used it to create a baseboard right here. So, and similar types of geometries can be easily created by using the sweep modifier. Now, sweeps are created by adding the sweep modifier to the path, okay, followed by adjusting the cross-section settings and other parameters in the modify panel. Now, there is a use built-in section option. So right here, this is in the parameters. So in the section type, you have the use built-in section option. And under that option, it contains a list of pre-created cross-sections that can be used easily. So you can use any of those pre-created cross-sections. You don't have to create it by creating it by the line tool or create a spline out of it. All you have to give is the path segments and then choose one of the built-in section tools. So for example, here I have used the angle, and using that angle I have swept it along the path sections. So that's the third modifier. Now, the transform tools. Now we'll talk about the transforms. As I mentioned before, transforms are different than modifiers. They are the basic tools for 3D manipulations and do not affect the object's internal structure. You cannot change the shape of an object with a transform. Transforms can be applied to complete objects and not a part of an object. In the case of modifiers, as I mentioned to you before, you can apply to a part of an object. You can apply any modifier to a part using the sub-object level through the modifier stack. But transforms have to be used to a complete object. Unlike most modifiers, transforms are independent of an object's internal structure. They don't manipulate the internal structure, and they always act in the world space. They are located in the main toolbar. You can see the section of the main toolbar that I've gotten, and these are the transform tools that are provided. So the transform tools that are provided with the software, for 3ds Max software, are select and move, select and rotate, select and scale, and select and place. So these are the icons for them, and they are provided through the main toolbar. All these tools select the object and then use this transform in a single click. So they have the selection option available within them. Transform modes remain active until they are canceled. So what happens, because they use the selection, they have a selection option inbuilt inside of them, so they remain active. Once you have completed one of the transformations, like for example, you have moved an object, it still remains in the select and move tool. It still remains in that. So it is always a good idea to cancel after you have finished a transform, so you need to cancel the selection, and that can be done by either clicking on the select object tool, or you can also press Q to clear the selection. So what it does is it's to avoid accidentally moving or rotating or scaling objects while you're making selection. So for that, it's highly recommended to always, once you finish the transform using the transform tool, you need to clear the transform tool option, and by clicking on the select object tool, or you can press Q. Now, transforms can be constrained to one or two axes. So there are many ways to constrain the transforms. Most common is using the transform gizmos. So now, here on the screen, you can see this is the transform gizmo for the move command, move tool. Then this is the rotate gizmo for the rotate tool, and scale gizmo. So these gizmos, once you click on the move tool, for example, and you select an object, this will appear, a gizmo will appear. So what you can do is you can highlight an axis handle on the gizmo, and then before clicking and dragging. So for example, you want to move in only in the X direction or Y direction or Z direction, you can just highlight one of those gizmos, and then it will just constrain it in this axis and move it only in this axis. You can have all the three axes also. You can move in all three axes, or you can move in this axis or Z axis. Now, you can also enter the required transform values in transform type-in area in the status bar. Here, you can see this is the part of the status bar that I have put in here, and these are the actual transform values that I have put in. So this way, you can apply a transform accurately and precisely by entering the values. Now the scale tool, so move and rotate tool, they are single tools. You can move them in any direction and you can rotate it in any direction. But with the scale, you have a fly out options available with it. So you can use specific scale tools to scale in various axes. So there is the uniform, which scales it in all the three directions. It scales it uniformly in all the three directions. Then you have the non-uniform that enables you to scale in one or two axes independently. And you have the squash option that does the same thing as the non-uniform, like scaling in one or two axes, but it applies a simultaneously opposite scaling to the other directions as well. Now, the next one is the select and place transform tool. It enables you to locate and position and rotate an object with respect to the surface of another object. So what that means is when this tool is active, what you can do is you can take an object and move it along the sides of another object. So it has also different options. So right-clicking on the select and place, you can use the placement settings dialog box to customize how the objects are aligned with respect to another object. Now the rotate, here it enables you to click and drag an object to rotate around the local axis that is specified with the object. Then we have the use base as pivot. The second option right here, it constrains the base of the object as the contact point with the surface of another object. So by default, the pivot point of the object is used as the contact point. Then we have the pillow mode, which enables you to move the objects around each other, but restricts them from intersecting. And then we have, and this is useful when moving the objects over uneven surfaces. So if you have to go up and down over surfaces, you can use the pillow mode because it just restricts them from intersecting or going into the other object. Then auto parent, it automatically links the objects that are being placed as a child of the object it's being placed on. So it creates a hierarchical relationship between the two objects. So that's the auto parent right here. Now, I will now demonstrate all those tools that I talked about, some various modifiers, but I'm not going to use all the modifiers that I talked about here. I'm going to use the extrude and I'm going to use the taper modifier. And I will also use the transform tools to place the created objects in the correct scene position. So here, what I'm going to do in today's demonstration, I'm going to create a parking lot lighting fixture in a scene, and I will create it by creating a 2D shape and then extruding it to create a 3D object. And then I will also create some primitive objects dynamically in that viewport and then modify the objects using various modifiers in the command panel. And I will also use the transform, move, rotate, and place tools to place those created objects in the correct scene position. So let's go into the 3ds Max software. So I have already a base which has been created in here, and now I will create a shape for the post, the lamp post. I'll create first a shape, and then I will use the extrude modifier to extrude that shape. So first of all, I'll create a rectangle. I'm in the top viewport right here, and I'll be creating the rectangle in the top viewport. So create, so select the create button right here, and then we have the geometry tool already selected, but I want the shapes tool to be selected. So select the shapes. Then in the list, I use the rectangle command, a rectangle 2D shape, because I want to draw a rectangle 2D shape. And then in the keyboard entry, I will just give my values in here because I know where I have created my base. the height as what I want to create it. I had calculated it earlier. So X is 0, 0, and Y will be 0, 0 as well, and Z, the height will be at 3.2, which I've entered here. So 3.2 is the height. Then length and width, I will make it 6 inches wide and 6 inches long, the rectangle. So I have entered those values. And I will also give a corner radius of 0.1 inches right here. So once I say create, it will create a rectangle in the top viewport right here. So I'll create the shape. So that shape has been created right here. Now I will use the modifier list to get the extrude and extrude this shape along the z-axis. So go into the modify panel, and then so in the modifier stack, you can see only the rectangle has been created by now, and now I will be creating I'll be extruding that rectangle. So in the modifier list, click, and as I mentioned before, everything has been listed alphabetically, and so we'll go and scroll down and choose the extrude modifier. It's right here. So I'll choose the extrude modifier, and you can see it maintains the structure, the hierarchical structure in the modifier stack, and I can access still the parameters for the rectangle and the extrude as well. So now I will give an amount because I want a height of 15 feet. So I will enter an amount of 15 feet right here, and segments I will keep as 1 because I don't want it to have more geometry in there. So other parameters can be used, but right now I don't want to use any of those parameters. And when I pressed 15, you saw that in the 3D perspective, 3D perspective view, you can see that the post was created right here, so which is 15 feet tall. Now if I zoom into it, you can see because I had given the value, the fillet value on the rectangle right there. So you can still go back into the rectangle and change those fillet options, the steps, the interpolation options. So for example, you can increase it to make it more smoother. So for example, if I give it 6 and press enter, see how it becomes more smoother by adding more geometry to it. But generally, we should always try and remove geometry, unnecessary details, and create simple models, because that means reduced file size, and that speeds up the performance while you're rendering later on, or whether you're moving or stuff around. So to reduce the file size and to speed up the performance, it's always recommended that you remove the unnecessary details. So this is because nobody is going to go and look at the post so closely. So we can just remove that unnecessary detail by giving it a steps of 2 and in the interpolation and reduce the size. So there we go. So that has been created. Now we can, the post is just a straight post. So for that, we can apply another modifier to it and just make it a little bit more tapered at the top. So we can use a taper modifier. So now if we go into the modifier list, we can use the taper modifier. As you know, everything is alphabetically placed, and T should be at the bottom of the list around here. So we have gotten the taper modifier. So we will assign a taper modifier here, and nothing happens right now because the amount has not been given in. So what we can do, and you can notice that here the taper modifier is the next in line, so you can still access the parameters of the extrude modifier or the rectangle shape. You can rectangle shape. You can access all those parameters and modify them. But right now we will taper it at the topmost position, and we can do that by giving an amount of 0.5. And what it does is it will give us 50%, approximately 50% size reduction over the height. So if I press enter, you will notice what happens here, and you will also notice that the top cross section of the post will be visible in the top view as well. So I'm going to press enter, and you just keep a watch on the perspective as well as the top view. So it makes it bigger. So to reduce that size, I'll go -0.5. And now say enter, just so you can see. So it is tapered along the top. Now it's been tapered. I can maximize and show you in a better view. So it has, the post is tapered along its height. So that's the taper modifier. Now in this case, I can still go back into the rectangle or the extrude modifier and change those, whatever the amount, maybe change the height. So you can still go there, and you can even modify the parameters of the rectangle shape. So by, for example, given steps of 5, you can see the change. I will first zoom into it, and it has already taken up the 5 steps in the interpolation. I can also now go back and give 2. So you can still go back in the modifier list. So now I will create a housing and a globe first using the primitive objects, and then we will move them using the transform tools into place. Now, so first of all, we will create through using primitive objects, which is available in the geometry panel, and then we have the standard primitives right here. But we want to use one of the chamfer cylinders, so for that we have to go into the extended primitives and then choose chamfer cylinder right here. Now in the perspective view, I will close to base, I will create a chamfer arbitrarily, just any size, because I'm going to assign the size. I will enter the values in the keyboard entry. So it's an approximate size right now. I'll go into the, so that's been created. Now go back into the modify panel, and now I can choose, I can modify its radius, I can modify the height and everything else right here. So I'll give a radius of around 2 feet, and then height of 1 feet. And again, I'll give a fillet option for this one of a 0.2 inches. So that's what happens with the fillet option. It gives it a beveled edge right here. And we leave the sides as 12. We can reduce it. We can increase the size right here. And that's for the housing for the lampshade. So maybe name it as housing right here. And the housing has been created. So now we will create a globe inside of that housing. So so we'll go again in the select and geometry and standard back into the standard primitives. We don't want an extended primitive for that. And now we will have a sphere. We will select a sphere for the lamp shade, so sphere. And then enter a radius. We'll click and enter, draw it in the perspective view anywhere, and then I will just modify its size and also its shape. So what I can do is I can give it a radius of 1 inch exact, and then leave the segments for the time being as 10. And then I can use the hemisphere option right here to make it into a half a sphere, because I want the lampshade under that housing. So for the hemisphere, I can use a 0.5, so it makes it into half a hemisphere right here. So I can use the squash parameter. So what it does is it makes it more smoother, and the appearance becomes smoother. So now we will name it, go into the modifier panel and name this sphere as globe. So now go back, and now we'll move them into position using the actual transform tools now. So I selected the housing, and now you select and move right here, and you can see the gizmo is right here. So this is the transform gizmo that was talking about. And now you can use the either highlight. So when I move my cursor over one of the axes, it highlights it into yellow. And then I can use the x-axis to move it around x, or I can use it with the y-axis to move it around y, or the z-axis. Or I can use all the three transforms and move it in any other direction. I can also have a plane and move it only in the X and Z direction. So you can use the gizmo to move it anywhere. But if you have the exact points, exact coordinates where you want to move it, then it's always better to enter those values in the status bar right here and down below, and then move it exactly to that position. So I have already calculated the position of moving this housing to. So I will enter those precise positions. But first of all, I want to, so I have the pivot point as world, and I also have the pivot point center. So the precise position will be 0, 0 in the X direction. So 0 and 0. And 0. Once I press enter and move into another location, you will see how this will move to the X 0.0 in x-axis. So right there. And similarly in the y-axis, I want it a little offset, so I will enter a -6 in y-axis. And as I will press enter or go into the z-axis, you will see it will move to it will be offset to the side a little bit, and then now move it high up so that it is in a line with the post. So that the total height is 19 feet. So 19. And press enter, it will move up. So it's not visible in the perspective view right now because it's moved right up. So I'll use the zoom extents all to get into position. Zoom extents all in all the viewports. We can see that it has moved up to the precise location of where I put those points in the status bar. Now we will also move the globe, and using again the same move tool, select and move. It's already selected. We have not cleared it. So we'll just go and select this, and it will automatically go into the move tool, select and move transform tool, and we will apply the same position values. So X was 0.0, Y was -6, and Z was Z was 19, and press enter and it will move up. So as you can see, it's moved up right here. So to come out, so what I had done already, I'll just show you a little bit. It has gone inside the housing because we use the position to move it inside the housing. So now let's select it. It is and we want to rotate it. So we will use the other rotate tool to rotate this, rotate the globe. So we'll use the rotate tool right here, and you can see the rotate gizmo. Now maybe using the left view, I can show you more better. So I can use one of the rotate transform gizmo axes to move it in one direction or different directions. So you can move it like this, or you can even move it in this direction or any other direction. Just Control Z, so that I undo whatever I did. But I know I want to rotate it just below it exactly, so it's 180 degrees. I want to rotate it. So, but I'll apply (180) in the X direction, and see it rotates it. Now it's underneath. That's how I wanted it. So if you orbit a little bit, you can see. So that's the lamp, that's the globe, and that's the housing that we created. Now, once we are still in the rotate tool, so whenever you select any object, we're still in the rotate tool because it doesn't come out. And this way, there's a high degree of high chances that we will move in some axis and it will move it. It will rotate that base or any other object that we select after using this tool. So it's always recommended to either go select object or press Q in there. Now these are the two transforms that we use, the move and the rotate transform. And now I'll be also using the select and place transform tool to create a nut and bolt. So I'll do it quickly in using this the create geometry option, and in the standard primitives I'll select a cylinder, and then in the perspective view I will create a small cylinder right here close to base, and then I will modify it, name it as nut, and modify it to a radius of and a height of 1, and then sides, I'll have 6 sides. I'll zoom into it. So it's a nut that I've created, and I will create a bolt with it. So maybe in the top viewport. So I created the nut, and then now I'll create another bolt, which will be another cylinder close to that, and name it as, in the modify panel, name it as bolt. Name it as bolt and give a radius of 6/8 of an inch, and then height of 8. And let's have sides 20 to make it more round in shape. So that's the bolt right there. So I created the bolt. Now we will use the select and place option to move it with respect to this nut. So we still have the bolt selected, and the cursor, when I move it over a selected object, it uses this select and place. The cursor changes into that icon, and now as I move it around, you will see it automatically jumps up and just goes on top of the bolt, and you can see it automatically moves to the side. So you can just using any of the, so what it does is with respect, when it comes closer to another object, with respect to the surface that it touches, it just rotates itself automatically along that axis, along the surface. So that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to make it jump up and go and place it somewhere in the center. So that's an approximate center. I'll move it right there. Now I'll group those two together first and then move them over the base plate so that, and place them into position. So I'll select this, select both of them, go into group and group them together and name them, for example, I'll name them as something anchor. I'll say okay. So these are the anchor on the plates. So now we want to place them right here. So I still have the select and place selected because that doesn't change anything. Now I move my cursor over to, I'll just maximize this viewport so that you can see it clearly, and then I'll move it along the sides. You can move it over, you can move it along the sides again, and you can just place it wherever you want. So this is such a convenient tool to place objects on top of, with respect to another object. So it easily goes. We don't have to actually see if they are joining each other because it is basically just using the other surface as its base, as a base, and it's touching the whole group right there. So if we go back into, I say zoom select all, go into here, so that's where we placed it. We can just move it now. So we use the move command and using the shift option and copy it and move it onto other 4 locations. So, okay, and then okay. So that's a convenient tool to use, and these are the 4 transform tools that are available: the select and move, select and rotate. Then we have the scale, select and scale, which has different options: select and uniform, non-uniform, and squash. And then we have the select and place, which is a very convenient tool to use, as I've shown you already. So this finishes the presentation. I'll go back and then.
Renu, just really quickly, we had someone just wanted to ask that this tool is in 3ds Max 2017.
Yes.
Correct? Yes. So I just wanted to make sure of that.
Yes, it is. It was introduced in 2016 actually, and then they modified it a little bit in 2017.
Perfect.
Yes. So we completed the software demonstration, Now, to summarize, in today's demonstration, we were able to use the Extrude Modifier to extrude a 2D shape to create a 3D object. We showed that we used the 2D shape, a rectangle 2D shape, to extrude that post. We used the taper modifier to alter the physical structure of the 3D object. So what we did was we modified it along the top so that it was half. The width of the post was half of what it was at the base. So we used the taper modifier to alter the physical structure. Then we created primitive objects and then modified them. So we created different objects using the primitive objects for the globe, the housing, and also the place, the nut and bolt. Then we moved the object to the new location. We moved both the globe as well as the housing to the top of the, near the top of the post. And then we also rotated the objects to the correct scene position. We rotated the globe in the, to be underneath the, what do you call it, the housing, and we used the place transform to move the object with respect to another object. That was the nut and bolt anchor object that we created, and then we moved it over the base plate. So that is the summary of today's presentation. And then now we have the Autodesk 3ds Max 2017 Fundamentals Training Guide, and it's available for you. Like other training guides, this training guide has an Autodesk Authorized Publisher branding. All the ASCENT training guides are, we have the Autodesk Authorized Publisher branding, and all the training guides have that branding. This training guide has a typical ASCENT layout where each chapter has the learning objectives. So beginning of each chapter, we have the learning objectives. And what these learning objectives do is they help you to understand what you will be learning in the whole chapter. Then at the end of each chapter, the chapter review questions are provided, and these are to quickly review and refresh what was learned in the preceding chapter. Then an appendix is also provided at the end of the training guide, and that appendix, it helps you to locate the exam objectives in the 3ds Max in the training guide. So these exam objectives are the same objectives that are used for the 3ds Max 3ds Max software exam user in the professional exam that's given by the Autodesk company, and this way you will be able to prepare for those AutoCAD certified exams. There is also the instructor tools that is available, which these are the instructor tools, similar, and these are available, which these can be used along with the training guide. So it provides you with the answers for the chapter review questions, and it also gives you the suggested timing that is required to complete each chapter in the training guide. So the next slide, these are the list of available titles in the visualization lineup that are offered by ASCENT. So we have the 3ds Max Design 2017 Fundamentals, from which I presented to you the material today. And then in the visualization lineup, we also have the Navisworks 2017 Essentials, and also the Showcase, which is the Autodesk Showcase 27 Fundamentals course. So both of these all three of these student guides, these have been already released, and they are available for you. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Corinne, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about those training guides.
Thanks, Renu. Yeah, really quickly, I just wanted on this slide to let everyone know about the variety of learning formats that we have available. Okay, so yeah, you can go to this slide here. Yes. So we have, as Renu mentioned, the printed book. We call this a student guide, but it's a printed spiral-bound book, Or if you prefer learning digitally, we have an ebook that you can purchase, and there's like an image of it there on the right-hand side. You could use on your iPad or laptop computer or desktop computer. And we also have video-enhanced ebooks. We partnered with CAD Learning on this, and we use their videos, and we've incorporated them into our ebooks. So that's a really great way of learning. If you like to see something being taught to you, you can see visually, and then you can do the hands-on practices yourself afterwards. And then, as Renu mentioned, we also have instructor tools available. So for people who are teaching the course, these are very helpful. They give you timing suggestions for delivering the course, and as well as the answers to the questions that are within the book. And our very last slide here is just our contact slide. So we have our information on how to get a hold of us. Our website is at the bottom there, ASCENTed.com. And on there you can access our blog. You can access all the information for our courseware, including a table of contents or sample chapters. You can go directly from our website to our e-store to make a purchase. And if you have any questions or comments for us, please feel free to email us at feedback@ascented.com.